I'm open for business.
Yeah.
When I'm not sitting there, unless it's majorly important, they leave me alone for the most part.
Good.
But, I love psychometry. My first teacher, when I was in my early 20s, was this little old lady. She was called Lady Tita. She was the rock and roll witch of Pix 106, a radio station up here in upstate New York.
Wow.
This woman was so good with psychometry. We would send her into the back room, close the door, and post somebody at the door. And we would take an object and we would walk all the way through the house, go, no, I don't think I want to put it there. No, I don't think I want to put it there. No, I don't think I want to put it there. And, this woman would walk through literally following the exact footsteps.
Wow.
And she would stop at every place we got to and said, no, I don't think I'm going to put it there. No, I don't think I'm going to put it there. And then she'd reach the last place and just literally reach right to it. And she could tell you everything about the object. Wow. I love psychometry. I don't do it as much as I used to.
Yeah.
I prefer the cards.
Yeah.
That's always been my thing.
Well, and here's something that Stephanie, definitely listen to this because, Michael's saying is so good as well. And you're speaking fondly of a teacher. And my teacher was Kim Wade, and she died a couple of years ago, but I always speak of her because she was so gentle to me. In other words, one day with the card, she said, I was frustrated, and she flipped a card over. She said, listen, look at this card and just tell me what you see. And I remember I don't even know what deck it was. It was a Nordic deck or maybe a Robin Wood or something, but it was a king of something, maybe king of wands or coins. And I looked down at the card and I literally heard the guy on the card talking to me. And so I said, well, I feel like da, 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 da. And she goes, see, you don't have to know the definitions. You can trust your intuition and you can hear what's going on. Now, she said, now it's important for you to understand traditional meanings and stuff like that because it's going to help you and it adds layers, which, like I said, is something we'd talk about. But she was so gentle with me. She allowed me to work my own way. And, and I just appreciated that in her. But, one of my, when I started really getting heavy into mediumship, I was working with teachers from Casadega here in Florida, which is kind of like the Lilydale of the South, because a lot of them would come down here in winter. And it's a whole city of psychics and mediums. And it's a spiritualist church there as well. So I was working with, a teacher there, and most spiritualists and churches that are spiritualist churches, they don't really use cards, or at least I'm told that. Maybe I'm wrong. But I remember this teacher always said, oh, they're a crutch. Well, I'm glad I had enough strength in myself to not let that sway me from continuing to learn and work with the cards. And what she was saying was they're a crutch for her because she just goes straight to spirit for the information. For me, the cards are so beautiful and I'm so connected to them. And I mean, they are like family to me. And I will reach for them when I know I don't even need them because it's just like having that buddy there next to me. But I've tried to kind of get away from them, but they called me back. And when I say I try to get away from them, because I kind of thought, well, let me see if they are a crutch. But they are so powerful. And when I'm not, quote, so connected or something's going on in the ethers or maybe I don't feel well, the cards are always there for me. The cards are just, if I feel like I am not in tune with spirit whatsoever, or they turn the phone off, all I got to do is throw the cards down and I'm good and I'm golden. So that's why I always feel comfortable and confident doing almost any reading because if, worst case scenario, I've always got my cards and they're going to give me the deal. All I got to do is say what I'm seeing from the cards.
Right. And it's important to trust whatever method or modality of divination that you use, whether it's cards, bones, charms, whether you're doing straight spiritual readings, just talking to spirit, you have to develop that relationship, and the fact that you love yours and they're like family, really shows the connection that you have with those. So when you're doing your readings, how is it that you add layers?
So, and this is something that I always kind of did a little bit. And then when I started teaching more, I started really developing it and working with it. And for me, so if you're sitting in front of me and I'm doing a reading for you, I typically read in kind of a layer form. And I don't think it's anything new. I'm sure other people do it. But for me, the layer form is just kind of natural. Sometimes I use all the layers. Sometimes I use, one or two of the layers. But I will typically, let's say I pull like the 8 of Wands. I'll say, okay, the 8 of Wands, typically or traditionally, this card used to mean like travel. It's this kind of like travel, kind of a connection. Or I might say, it's things popping up out of the blue, maybe 6 of Wands. It might be this, writing in victorious, a traditional, or 4 of Wands. That's another one. Because it's 4 of Wands for me, traditionally hardly ever is marriage card for me. But traditional cards and traditional meanings, especially like Rider-Waite, it's like the marriage card because it's like, two people under the canopy type of a thing. So I'll say traditionally, this is what this card means. And then I'll go to a next level, or next layer would be like, okay, but intuitively, I'm feeling this. And then I might step into and say, well, listen, this is the 7 of Swords. So I realize the traditional and I've got the intuitive, but the number 7, numerology, the number 7 is all about metaphysical, mystical, spiritual. It's research, solitude, it's analyzing. It's this very lucky kind of a number for a lot of people. So I'm taking the traditional, then my intuitive impressions, then I'm adding the layer of what the number means. And then I may look at let's say like the Queen of Coins, and I'll add the layer of astrology in. Now, I am not at the point where I know every card, what astrological symbol and sign goes with it, but I'm getting better and better with that. So if I look at the Queen of Coins, I may say, okay, this person that's coming in your life or that's in your life, maybe they're a Capricorn, Taurus, or what's the third one? Capricorn, or Virgo. So I may say they're probably one of the earth elements because it's the Queen of Coins. And for me, the Queen of Coins usually is a Capricorn. So, but I feel like if I remember, she's a Taurus in the traditional meanings, but I will layer in that astrological aspect of it as well. And then I may add in the colors. And usually colors are when I have several cards down. Because if I notice out of 10 cards, there's a lot of blue, then I may be drawn to, and I go back to like the chakra system. So I say, you know what, there's a lot of blue here. So there's probably something to do with speaking your truth, something to do with, the element of air, the hearing, the clairaudient. And that's like the fourth layer, fifth layer that I would add in. And then if we really want to get into it, embodiment, which, let's see, 9 of Coins, Rider-Waite, traditionally is this woman holding a bird on her hand, and one hand I think is kind of down to the ground. I might take the physical stance or have my client take the physical stance of the person on the card and just see how that feels. And if people listening don't know about embodiment, just think how you feel when you're wearing flip-flops versus when you're wearing high heels or dress shoes. You walk and act differently because of the shoes. And if you take on the embodiment of the character on the card, like if you think of, let's say, the Queen of Cups versus the Queen of Swords, you might sit a little more erect as the Queen of Swords. You might hunch over a little bit looking down if the Queen of Cups is looking down at her cup in front of her. And that embodiment can help add another layer. And then also direction of focus or action. Which way is the horse riding? Is it riding left, which for me will mean going or looking to the past or kind of a negative feel? Is it riding to the left? Or to the right, is it moving forward like we read? Is it, kind of a positive feel? And then the final thing I'll do is I'll ask questions of the characters on the cards if I need to get more information. What would the Queen of Coins do in this situation? And just allow her to speak the answer. So those are pretty much like how many layers is that? 5, 6, 7, like 8 layers that I'll pull from all of them. And I do it randomly. When I'm teaching, I make people only use one layer at a time. And then at the end, when we practice, we can use all of them, but I'll say, okay, we're going to only go with traditional meanings. Everybody, quick, do one card reading. Okay, we're only going to work with numerology. Ask a question, answer the question with the numerology of the card. Connect with the astrology, connect with the color. So that's what I mean with the layers and how I read and work.
And I think it's important that people look at, especially with tarot, or any divination system that has a set form of meanings for each and every individual card. Because we get sometimes stuck on, this is the book, this is how it has to be, that we lose sight of the creativity. When somebody created the actual deck, when somebody actually chose the particular images, why they chose them, why they stood in the same stance, or why they were looking in a certain direction, why did they choose those particular colors? It's important that we go beyond just traditional meanings, if we want to communicate with spirit and our own intuition, but blend it with meanings that were designed for the particular card. Because I believe any deck, regardless of the system, morphs and changes over time with you, just as you grow and change.
Yeah. And I think of, I did not take ballet. I have not taken a true study of musical instruments and things like that. But I always hear people say, with dance and with music, it's important to, with music, it's important to learn the scales.
Yes.
With dance, it's important to learn ballet, jazz, tap. And then once you know the rules, then go break them. And I think I've always felt that's an important component when I teach and when I was learning, is truly learn from the masters, learn from the greats, learn from the creator of the deck or, whatever divination system, learn from those who know, and then go out and make it your own as well. And let it grow and become part of you. Because I think that's when it becomes very rich and very meaningful. It's
I do as well. I think that people lose sight of their own individuality in reading.
Yeah.
Because we're all different. Nobody reads the same. I mean, I can read somebody's future in a bowl of macaroni. And it's just a bowl of macaroni. But because I'm tuning into and putting my mind into a certain state, and I've done intuitive and spiritual readings for over 30 years, that my mind is trained to look for symbols, look for patterns, look for colors, divots, things that are normal eyes just don't focus on, because we've taken ourselves out of that, saying, oh, well, this is just a bowl of macaroni.
Yeah.
And it's really not. I think that we owe it to ourselves and to our own decks and to our spiritual selves.
Yeah. And something more. That I love when I'm teaching, I love when somebody either brings a friend and they don't know cards at all, or someone's so new, but they're also free and they speak their mind. Because two beautiful examples that I always mention their name, Johnny and oh my gosh, Jennifer. So I'm teaching a tarot workshop one time, and we were just doing a 1-card spread. I said, pull a card for how your day went. And this woman pulled the 6 of Wands. And I was like, oh, you must have had a good day. And she goes, well, and I said, well, what? And she goes, well, when I look at this card, and it's a man on a horse, typically with her deck and with the traditional Rider-Waite, riding back with people around, and it's bright, it's brilliant, it's about victory and success. And she said, well, I don't know if I'm the horse or the rider. And I just went, oh my God. And in that moment, I said, I need you to know that every time I speak of this, Jennifer, I will mention your name, because I never would have thought that until you said it. But it was a victorious day for the man riding the horse, which was her boss, but she did all the grunt work that day.
Right.
Which is what the horse did. The horse worked his butt off. So I remember just thinking, I literally said, you have just given me another tool and a nugget of gold. And then this guy who was just sitting back, relaxed in my meetup group here in Orlando, pulled a card. And I said, Johnny, tell me what that card would mean for you. And it was a 7 of Swords. And I was waiting to hear what he had to say. And he said, because the Seven of Swords is often kind of like, man, stealing the sword, sneaking out. It's like it's not necessarily positive in most people's first impression. And he goes, well, this guy, he goes, I'm a craftsman.